I've been told that you need to get more leads, spend more money on ads, get more new patients, and just overall increase the volume of your practice. But what if I told you the real reason your schedule isn't full actually has nothing to do with getting more leads? And in this video, I'm going to show you the exact places that your practice is losing high intent patients before they ever even book and show up, and how to fix it using a system I call the 4D drop off matrix. And here's what we're going to cover in this video. There's three critical things I want to unpack. And the first one is the four exact places that your front desk is actually silently losing you leads. Number two, I want to cover why your marketing isn't helping and actually not growing your practice and potentially maybe even making it worse. And number three, I want to talk about how you actually implement a simple fix that turns all of your new inquiries into new patients who show up, purchase a package, and become lifelong patients. And I use this exact process in my PT clinic, and we actually added back $120,000 every single year without adding a single new patient. In fact, we spent less money on ads, we had less leads coming in, but we were turning those leads into more profit. And so by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how to fix the real problem in your cash practice, and it's probably not what you think. And so this is what I want to unpack in this particular video. I'm so passionate about this because I, like you guys, wanted to grow my cash practice. I didn't care about anything else but growing it so that my schedule was full and that ultimately I could get another provider into my practice and actually free up my time. And the way that I did this and the way that I thought you were supposed to do this was I saw some marketing guru's ad online, I paid for their program, and I spent some money on ads, and I just sat around watching dollars disappear from my practice in the way of ad spend and the way of paying for this coaching program. And I did not see any revenue. And so I'm sitting here, I'm racking my brain trying to figure out what the problem is. And the marketing company is going to blame us and we're going to blame the marketing company. And I just didn't care what the problem. I just needed to figure out what the problem was. And so what I did was is I sat down and I started tracking where every single lead was in the journey, right? How many leads did we have coming in, actually like opting in? How many of these leads were, did we get on the phone? How many of them actually bought a package or actually showed up for their eval? How many of them actually bought a package, right? And what I found was pretty shocking, right? And in 2022, when I started running some of these ads, I found that we had 45 leads coming in, but only five of those people were actually purchasing packages. And I was getting like 5,000 or 5,500 or something like that back on like our investment. And I was, from ads that month. And I'm like, all right, we're at least getting some money in. But then what happened is like a year and a half later, when I was so frustrated by this and not growing like I wanted to, had decreased my ad spend at the time, and we'd only gotten like 35 leads in that particular month. And when I finally solved it using this 4D matrix that I'm going to show you here in a second, we had did 15,500 on just paid advertising that month. It's like, huh, this is kind of crazy. A $10,000 difference. And I had less leads actually opting in. This was crazy to me. And it's exactly the same problem that many of you guys face in your practice, where you spend more money on marketing, you're out pounding the pavement trying to get people to know, like, and trust you, and you're not growing at the rate that you want to. And my problem was that I hired a front desk person. I didn't train her like she needed to be trained. I didn't give her the tools and the processes that she needed to ultimately be successful. And ultimately, we're just losing leads all over the place. And I don't want that to happen to your practice. And so, what I want to do now is I want to show you this 4D drop off matrix here. And this is exactly what I started to use in order to find this lost revenue here in the practice, and that was exactly a really important thing for us, and I want this to be the case for you as well. So let me see if I can share. Okay, so we've got the 4D drop-off matrix here. We've got four distinct points that we're going to potentially be losing patients. We have, and they're all Ds, hence the four Ds, but we've got the delay zone, the disconnect zone, the disappearance zone, and the drop off zone. Now, each of these points is exactly where I was losing patients in my practice, and you probably are as well. And so we've got the delay zone. This is basically a lead opts in to your practice. And it's the point from the moment they opt in or call your practice or text your practice or however they find you, and the moment that we get them on the phone. What's that process like? Are we calling them multiple times? More importantly, are we calling them quickly? If we're not calling people within 5 minutes, chances are we got a big drop off point here. And are we actually reaching out to them consistently, right? Can you call me in a couple weeks? I'm out of town. Oh, yeah, no worries. Do we actually follow up with them at that point? Many practices don't. And this is oftentimes a big bottleneck for a lot of folks. The next is the disconnect zone. This is where I actually get people on the phone. I've started to talk to them, and I get the insurance question right out of the gate. Hey, I was wondering if you took my insurance. No, we don't take your insurance, but we can give you a super bill and we work one on one, and you've already lost them at that point, right? Or you do a discovery, you talk for 4 or 5 minutes, and your front desk does, or you, and ultimately we jump on the phone call with this person, and at the end of the call, they're like, I need to think about it, or I need to talk to my spouse. And the biggest thing I need to do on this phone call is I need to connect so deeply that people think it's silly not to ultimately want to work with you at that point. Now, from the disconnect zone, when we actually get them on the phone, sometimes what can happen is we actually get buyer's remorse, right? Which is, hey, I've got them scheduled for an eval. It was like a week later, and ultimately they text back in or call in or whatever the culture of your practice is, and they say, hey, I need to cancel that appointment, right? And so now there's a drop off where these people are disappearing between the phone call and the initial evaluation. And most of the time, that is because there was a disconnect on the phone. And if we can solve the disconnect on the phone, suddenly it's a lot easier and I don't have patients disappearing or falling through the cracks. Now, once we actually get evals to show up, which is obviously one of the most important points, there's some strategies and things you can implement here. We ultimately have the drop off zone when they're actually in the clinic. They showed up. They were kind of like on the fence about showing up, but they showed up. And then now you're pitching a $2,000 care plan or plan of care to them, package, whatever you want to call them. And now you start getting hesitation and uncertainty from them. It's a little more expensive than I was thinking, or I need to think about it, or I need to talk to my spouse. And all those objections that you were getting on the phone, you're now getting in the clinic simply because we did not connect enough on that first phone call. Now, this is obviously this is going to be, if you got a brand new clinician in the clinic or your sales skills aren't completely up to par, certainly that can be a drop off point. But the biggest thing I like to coach and teach to front desk staff is I want it to be an alley oop when that person's in the clinic. It should be an easy drop in the bucket for the doctor as they're talking to this patient, right? To close them. Oh, we've already handled all the objections. We've gotten all the insurance stuff out of the way, and I'm simply getting them into the clinic, and now it's just formality. Hey, tell me what it's like, and tell me the next steps. Tell me how I work with you beyond this first session. Now, certainly, again, you got to have some sales points to get there, but I want to make sure that I'm actually warming this person up so much so that I'm not having to drag them down and I'm having to hit a full court shot in order to get this person where I got to pull these crazy sales tactics out to get there. Now, these are the four big drop off points, and I created a really simple calculator to actually like figure out for your practice, and I'll show that to you in a second. But there's a really simple way to figure out, is there potential disconnect and drop off that's happening for my practice as I'm kind of along the lines. And the biggest thing is often I'm not getting to people quick enough, but more importantly, when I do get them on the phone, we're not connecting at a deep enough level. And the goal of that first phone call is I need to connect so deeply that it seems silly that somebody would not actually want to work with you, right? Or that insurance needs to pay for it because we've actually created a gap. We've talked to them about all their problems and challenges, and we've dug deep into the goals that they ultimately have as well. Now, the problem that most of you guys will do is you've got some leaky holes in your system, and you'll start to do more marketing because you're frustrated that your practice actually wants to grow. And don't get me wrong, marketing's super important. You absolutely need to do it. Look, if your practice is like less than 2 years old, like you're going to have to do marketing. But the mistake you guys will make is you'll get real gung-ho about running a Facebook ad campaign or a Google ad campaign or, SEO or any, local marketing, whatever it is that you guys are doing right now, or that triad of things to grow the practice. And so you'll put more people into this system, right? You'll get more leads, but ultimately you're pouring them into kind of a leaky bucket, right? Where, hey, instead of me getting 10 leads last month, I got 20, but I still only had two or three people actually, additional people actually purchase a plan of care. And so you get a marginal growth, but you don't get the growth that you're looking for. And this is where like the marketing industry is kind of sleazy, right? You got a lot of agencies that will take money from you and those kind of things. And I've been burned by agencies in my practice too, but oftentimes we'll blame the marketing company when really, in all actuality, we just have a phone call problem, a front desk problem. We don't have the right person having the right conversations. And now I'm pouring more people and I'm spending more time, effort, money on marketing only to like kind of not really solve the problem. If I have 100 leads and I get 90 of those people to buy a plan of care, you're like printing money at that point, right? Versus if I get 100 leads and only 20 of them show up and purchase a plan of care, hey, we're going to have a hard time growing and scaling like we want to because you're spending a lot of money on customer acquisition and a lot of time on customer acquisition. And this is the mistake I was making in my practice and let it go on for a year and a half. And many of you guys will do the same thing. And so marketing doesn't always solve the problem you're looking to solve. And so how do we fix each of these points? And I want to show you this calculator now because this calculator is a really nice way to solve some of these problems. And what you can do is basically you want to solve the top end of this, right? So, of my total leads, and I've got a copy of this, I'll link it below in the video, or if you're part of our school community, this is inside of it as well. But if I have, let's say we have 50 total leads coming in, I've done a lot of marketing, I got a lot of great leads coming in, and I look to schedule, let's say I get 40 of those people actually scheduled for evals, right? And now I've actually got, a target. Well, let me back up and kind of orient you guys here so that you're not super confused. I've got total leads coming in. How many of those evals did we actually get scheduled? How many of those actually showed up, right? Is there a drop off between the amount of people you're scheduling and that actually want to come in and show up and pay money for that initial evaluation? And then lastly, we talk about packages or plan of care conversion. How many of those did we ultimately sell? And then down here, I've got potential like revenue loss. Certainly some of this is going to be based on your average plan of care. If you're in PT, Chiro, it tends to be the average plan of care value. Certainly, if you're in dentistry or regenerative orthopedics, those kind of things, like this percentage can be actually much higher depending on the average value of that customer. So, anywho, if we have 50 total leads coming in, let's say I got 40 of those people scheduled, but let's say only 10 of those people actually showed up, right? We've got a first phone call issue, right? And so even though I'm spending more money on advertising, I got more people coming into the clinic, I've got a show up problem. And people will try to solve this by, they'll put a credit card on file or they'll schedule them the same day or they'll double book people, whatever. It still doesn't solve the fact that we're not having a connection based phone call. And now people aren't actually going to want to come in and buy a plan of care. But let's say we're actually, we've kind of fixed the, that first phone call, and now, ultimately the target for some of this is I want 95% of these people to show up. So, let's say we're kind of pretty close to that target there. I got 38 out of 40. But now let's say that ultimately I'm not selling as many plans of care. There's some kind of disconnect that's potentially happening. And again, oftentimes I'll trace this back up to the first phone call where that person sounded, hesitant to want to come in, or maybe they weren't a good fit for the practice if you've got a particular avatar that you'd like to go after, or hey, maybe this particular person, they still had cost and insurance questions. And when they walked in, they were like, "Well, so do you guys like take insurance?" And now you're like, "No." And it's like, ooh, we've created a really awkward conversation. So let's say that we do a pretty good job of getting people into the clinic and they're not actually purchasing a package, right? Ideally, I want this to be, depending on your industry, if it's the owner, right, I want 80 plus percent. Certainly, if you've got associate docs and those kind of things, this target percentage can be a little bit lower. But let's say you've got a package conversion issue. Ultimately, in this particular case, I'm only closing 15. Ideally, I should be closing about 23 of these people. And so that's nine additional plan of care I should be selling. And that's about $18,000 in lost revenue simply because people aren't purchasing packages. Again, everyone wants to blame themselves or their sales tactics or marketing or whatever. But ultimately, again, this stuff can be traced back up to, that first phone call. Now, let's play devil's advocate here a little bit, and this is literally exactly where my practice was early on. We had 50 total leads coming in. Let's say, our throughput here, we decrease that down to, let's actually go sub percentage. Let's go down to 40% and say we only got 20 of those 50 leads in. Now, this target percentages can move a little bit if you're doing a bunch of Facebook ads or Google ads and those kind of things, versus if it's warmer traffic, referrals from patients, those kind of things. I would typically expect this percentage to be much higher. Now, what happens is I've only got 20 out of 50 people coming in. And so if I've only got 20 people actually like scheduling evals, and let's say that I got a pretty high like show rate here. Let's say I've got like 18 out of those 20. Like that's 90%. That's pretty darn good. But what happens at this point is now I've only got 18 people of the 50 showing up for evals. And marketing companies will tell you all the time. It's like, like that's a pretty good percentage, when it's like, no, we just need to be having the right conversations and getting to people pretty quick. Now, I've got 18 of these people that showed, but let's say that now I've only got 10 of these potential people buying packages. Because what happened is I didn't get to people quick enough, which is why I wasn't scheduling as many as I needed to. Ultimately, because I wasn't getting as many people scheduled, there's less people to actually like show up for their evals. I've only got 18 out of 20, which is pretty good. And now because I didn't pre-frame the journey, I didn't talk about packages, I didn't talk about the fact that we're at a network, I didn't talk about, how long people typically work for us, what's the average duration of care. Now I've got only 10 of these people, of these 18, actually purchasing a package, which is like 50%. And so now suddenly I've got a front end issue where I just need more patients to actually schedule from the leads that we're getting, and I'm losing roughly, assuming $2,000, I'm losing roughly $28,000 every single month. And I don't know about you guys, but most of you guys aren't paying your front desk $28,000. But if you have a better person at the front desk, or maybe it's you taking the phone calls, suddenly you are adding a ton of money. How much would that change your practice to have an additional 28K a month in this particular case? And most of this can simply be solved by getting to leads quickly and actually having the right connection-based phone call when I'm talking to these people on the phone. And most of you guys, when I secret shop your practices or I call in, it's like, hey, I was wondering if you took my insurance. It's like, nah, we're out of network, but we're one-on-one and we've got this laser and we can do dry needling. And it's like, you've already lost the patient at that point. And if we can get of the leads that we have coming in, if we can get more of them scheduled, it will solve a lot of your dilemma, potentially to the tune of $10,000 plus every single month. And I know my practice was literally losing 10K every single month because we weren't having the right conversations. We weren't getting the leads quick enough. We weren't, when we were on the phone with them, we weren't connecting for 15 plus minutes on that phone call. And ultimately, that was one of the biggest drop off points that we were kind of experiencing in our practice. So, um, ultimately the best way to really fix this stuff is to first you need to know your numbers, and that's why I've got this calculator here. That's the first fix for anything. And when I'm working with a potential client, this is literally where we start, because we need to figure out where the biggest drop off point is. And so if you want to fix this, you need to understand the problem. This is literally what we did in our practice, where I found the problem, and then ultimately you need to create a solution for that problem. If it's, hey, maybe we're not getting to leads quick enough. Well, do you need to hire another front desk person? Or do you need to not have your front desk person split in four different roles? This is a common thing in practices where, hey, now they're, hooking people up to STEM, or they're, helping them with other modalities. And then, oh, yeah, they're answering phone calls. And, oh, yeah, they're a part-time student on the side. It's like, oh, it's a nightmare to actually get to leads consistently. Or on the flip side, maybe you just need to hire somebody else so that they can only take these phone calls. Whatever the case may be, for us, it was, hey, my front desk just, she was working remote early on. Is like, I just needed to let her go because she just couldn't get the phone calls figured out. She just wasn't connecting enough, wasn't getting to leads quick enough. And ultimately, we needed to let her go. And that was the best decision for us, right? Or for some of you guys, you're getting leads on the phone, they're just not scheduling, or maybe they're canceling or no showing, or maybe they're not buying packages. Whatever the case may be, oftentimes that first phone call is the leaky bucket for a lot of you. So plot your numbers. Once you plot your numbers, design a game plan to actually fix this. And so now at this point, we've got tons of other trainings, obviously on our YouTube channel, or if you're in our school community. And if you need help solving these problems or challenges, check out these next videos. And otherwise, we'll see you guys next time on.